Nobody believed it when a millionaire CEO, known for his cold heart and endless pursuit of money, stopped everything because of a letter written by a 6-year-old girl. But that's exactly what happened. Before we dive deeper into this story, hit the like button and subscribe now. Here you'll find life-changing stories that will keep you inspired every single time. It all began on a rainy morning in New York City. Cars rushed by, umbrellas fought against the wind, and people hurried with their eyes fixed only on themselves. Inside the top floor of a shining glass tower, Ethan Caldwell, the young CEO of one of the biggest financial firms in the country, signed papers worth millions without a second thought. He had fortune, he had power, he had everything money could buy. Yet, people whispered about him. He only cares about profit. He has no heart. He doesn't even notice the world outside his office. And for the most part, they were right. Ethan lived in a world made of contracts, numbers, and bank accounts. Every move he made was about richness and fortune, and every deal was another trophy to his growing empire. But on that same day, as Ethan's assistant walked in with another stack of documents, something unusual rested on top of the pile. A small, slightly crumpled envelope. No official seal. No business card attached. Just a childlike handwriting that read, "Please read this, sir." Ethan frowned. "What's this?" he asked sharply. His assistant shook her head. It was delivered downstairs. No name, no return address. Security almost threw it away, but, well, it had your name on it. Normally, Ethan would have tossed it straight into the trash. He didn't waste time on things that didn't bring money. But something, maybe the strange sincerity of the words, made him pause. Slowly, he tore open the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in large, uneven letters. Written by a child. Ethan read the first line, and for the first time in years, his eyes stopped racing through words like they were numbers. "Dear sir, my name is Amara. I am 6 years old. I don't know you, but I need to tell you something very important." He froze. A child? Writing to him? Why? The letter was short, filled with spelling mistakes, but each word carried a weight that Ethan couldn't explain. It read, "I see your big building every day from where I live. It looks like a castle. But my mommy says castles are for people who have a lot of money. I don't know what it feels like to have money, but I do know what it feels like to be scared. My mommy is sick. She tries to smile, but I know she cries at night. I just want her to get better." Ethan blinked. He leaned back in his leather chair, staring at the paper. He had read countless proposals worth millions. He had scanned through endless contracts filled with numbers. But never had he read something like this. A child from the city streets, writing directly to him. He looked at the last line, "Please, sir, if you can, read this and don't forget me. Because if you do, maybe nobody else will remember me either." His chest tightened. Something stirred inside him, something he had buried long ago. But before he could read the letter again, his phone rang. It was the board. They were waiting for him to approve a new deal, one that would bring in unimaginable fortune. Ethan placed the letter on his desk. He stared at it. The voice of a 6-year-old girl against the call of millions of dollars. Which one would he choose? And what was it about this little girl that already felt different? Ethan walked into the boardroom, the sound of polished shoes echoing across the marble floor. 12 men in expensive suits sat waiting, each one eager to secure the next deal worth hundreds of millions. On the surface, everything was exactly as it always had been. Papers stacked high, screens glowing with charts, the language of money flowing like water. But Ethan's mind wasn't here. It was still in his office, staring at that shaky handwriting. "Please, sir, don't forget me." "Mr. Caldwell, we just need your signature," one of the directors urged. "This acquisition could increase our fortune by another 20%. Investors are already celebrating." He nodded absent-mindedly, pen in hand. Yet, for some strange reason, he hesitated. For years, he had signed contracts without a second thought. But now, a child's letter seemed to echo louder than all the voices in the room. He scribbled his name on the dotted line, but the moment the papers were collected, he rose from his chair. "Gentlemen, excuse me. I have something urgent to attend to." The room went silent. Ethan never walked away from money. Back in his office, the envelope still waited. He picked it up again, reading every uneven word, every misspelled sentence. Who was this little girl named Amara? Where did she live? How did this letter reach him? Ethan's assistant entered cautiously. "Sir, is everything all right?" He held up the letter. "Do you know who brought this?" "No, sir." Security said it was a courier. No details. Ethan rubbed his forehead. He wasn't the type of man to chase after strangers. His empire had no room for distractions. And yet, he couldn't shake the thought of a 6-year-old writing to him, pleading for him to remember her. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He stared out from his penthouse, overlooking the glittering lights of the city. He had money, fortune, and everything the rich dream about. But the little girl's words gnawed at him. "I just want my mommy to get better." The next morning, instead of heading straight to the office, Ethan told his driver, "Take me downtown." The driver glanced back in surprise. "Downtown, sir? That's not your usual route." "Just do it." As the car rolled into narrow streets far from the glass towers of wealth, Ethan's world began to look different. Broken sidewalks. Old brick buildings. Children playing in clothes too thin for the cold. It was a side of the city he hadn't seen in years, maybe ever. And then, he saw it. A small apartment block with peeling paint, right across from where his company's skyscraper towered in the distance like a giant castle. Ethan stepped out, his tailored suit drawing stares. A woman sweeping her porch froze when she saw him. Children whispered. Who was this rich man, this stranger with fortune written all over him, stepping into their world? A small voice called out, "Mommy, look." Ethan turned. There she was. A little girl with big brown eyes, hair in tiny braids, holding a worn teddy bear. She couldn't be older than 6. She was staring directly at him. Amara. The same girl who wrote the letter. Their eyes met. And for the first time in his life, Ethan felt something shift. Not in his fortune, not in his empire, but in his heart. What would he say to her? How could he explain why he was here? For a moment, Ethan just stood there frozen. He had walked into countless boardrooms, faced ruthless millionaire investors, and negotiated deals worth fortunes. But standing in front of this tiny girl made him speechless. Amara tilted her head curiously, hugging her teddy bear tighter. "Are you lost, mister?" she asked softly. Her innocence hit him harder than any business rival ever could. Ethan cleared his throat. "No. I was looking for someone. Are you Amara?" The little girl's eyes widened. "You read my letter?" Her voice trembled, as if she didn't quite believe it. "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "I read it." She smiled, a small hopeful smile that revealed the tiniest gap between her teeth. "I didn't think a rich man like you would read something from me." Before Ethan could respond, a woman's voice called out from the doorway of the apartment. "Amara, come inside." A thin woman stood there, her face pale, her frame fragile. She leaned against the doorframe as though even standing took too much energy. Her eyes, tired yet protective, fixed on Ethan. "Who are you?" she asked sharply. Ethan straightened his posture. "My name is Ethan Caldwell. Your daughter, she wrote me a letter." The woman's expression darkened. She stepped forward slowly, her hand resting on Amara's shoulder. "Mr. Caldwell, she shouldn't have bothered you. She doesn't understand." Amara tugged at her mother's sleeve. "But Mommy," he read it. "He's here." Ethan raised a hand gently. "Please, she didn't bother me. In fact, her words, they reached me in a way nothing else has in years." The woman sighed. She introduced herself as Marisol, Amara's mother. Her voice was polite, but there was a distance to it, like someone who had stopped believing in miracles long ago. "We don't need charity," she said firmly. "We've managed this far." Ethan looked around. The apartment behind them was dimly lit, the curtains thin, the furniture old. He noticed the faint smell of medication in the air. His heart tightened. "Your daughter asked me not to forget her," Ethan said. His voice was steady, but inside he was shaken. "I can't ignore that. Not when she wrote with so much hope." Marisol lowered her gaze, conflicted. Amara, however, looked straight at Ethan. "I just wanted someone to listen. Mommy always says people like you don't see people like us. But you saw me." The silence that followed felt heavy. For the first time, Ethan, the man who had built an empire from nothing, felt powerless. What could money do here? Could fortune buy back the strength in Marisol's body? Could richness erase the fear in Amara's eyes at night? Finally, Marisol stepped aside. "Come in, Mr. Coldwell. If you really want to see what her letter meant, then see it with your own eyes." Inside the small apartment, Ethan noticed the little details. A single lamp illuminating the room, children's drawings taped to the wall, a coffee table with a pile of unpaid bills stacked neatly, as if organizing them would make them easier to handle. Amara climbed onto the couch and patted the spot next to her. "Sit here." Ethan sat, awkward at first, his expensive suit out of place against the worn fabric. She leaned closer, whispering as though sharing a secret, "I think God wanted you to read my letter. Because maybe you're the only one who can help my mommy." Ethan's chest tightened. He had faced endless negotiations, but never had a 6-year-old's words left him this vulnerable. And deep inside he knew, he was already too far in to walk away. Ethan sat stiffly on the couch, the weight of Amara's words pressing on him heavier than any $1-million contract. He looked at Marisol, who was quietly pouring tea into mismatched cups, her thin hands trembling slightly. She placed one cup in front of him and another in front of her daughter, then sat down slowly, as though her body no longer obeyed her the way it once did. "I don't know what she wrote to you," Marisol began softly, "but please understand, we've managed without help before. We'll manage again." Amara shook her head quickly. "Mommy, no. I told him the truth. I told him you cry at night. I told him you're sick." Her little voice was desperate, honest in the way only a child's voice can be. Ethan leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "She told me," he said, "and that's why I'm here. Because I realized something, Ms. Marisol. With all my fortune, all my money, I have never once felt the weight of real need. Not like you." Marisol looked down, ashamed. "Need is our everyday. But pride is all we have left." The silence stretched. Ethan noticed Amara coloring on a piece of paper, her small hands moving quickly. She turned the paper around and held it up for him. It was a drawing of 2 buildings. One tall and shining like a castle, the very skyscraper Ethan worked in. The other, small and leaning, like the building they were sitting in now. Between the two, she had drawn a little stick figure girl holding a letter. "This is me," she explained brightly. "And this is you." Ethan swallowed hard. In her drawing, the distance between the buildings was huge. But her little figure was the bridge. He turned to Marisol. "What illness are you facing?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. She hesitated before answering. "It's complicated. My doctors say I need treatment I can't afford. The medication keeps me standing, but it's only temporary." Ethan's heart pounded. He had heard those words before, in the voices of people he never knew personally. To him, illness had always been numbers on an insurance report. To see it here, in the eyes of a mother holding her daughter close, it became something else entirely. He leaned back, staring at the faded ceiling. "I've spent my whole life chasing more money, more richness, more power. But I've never once stopped to ask, for what?" Amara placed her tiny hand on his. "Maybe, for this moment." The words pierced him. She wasn't asking for a millionaire's fortune. She was asking for hope. And yet, Ethan hesitated. His world had always been built on careful calculations. Every move weighed, every risk measured. If he got involved, everything could change. His focus, his reputation, even his future. Could he truly cross the invisible line between his castle of glass and this crumbling apartment? Marisol's voice cut through his thoughts. "Mr. Caldwell, we don't need pity. We just need a chance." But you have an empire to run. And we have survival. Ethan's phone buzzed loudly in his pocket. He pulled it out, another urgent call from his board. Millions of dollars waited for his decision. Another deal, another increase in his fortune. He looked from the phone to Amara's hopeful eyes, then to Marisol's weary face. Two worlds clashing in a single heartbeat. Ethan let the phone buzz in his hand. Each vibration was like a drumbeat reminding him of who he was. The cold, rich CEO who never missed a call, never delayed a decision, never risked losing money. But tonight, for the first time in years, he pressed the power button and turned it off. The silence that followed was deafening. Amara's eyes widened. Marisol raised her brows in disbelief. Ethan Caldwell, ignoring $1 million deal? He slipped the phone into his pocket. "Tell me exactly what you need," he said firmly. Marisol shook her head. "It's not that simple." "Make it simple," Ethan pressed. His voice wasn't cold this time, it was almost desperate. Her eyes softened slightly. "The treatments are expensive. The hospital says without them, I'll get weaker. But with them, maybe I'll have a chance. I've applied for help, but money always wins. The rich get their place first. People like us wait. Sometimes too long." Ethan clenched his jaw. He was used to money being a weapon, a shield, a tool. But here, in this little apartment, money was life. Or death. Amara slid off the couch and ran to her room. She came back holding a small jar filled with coins. She placed it on the table proudly. "I've been saving too. For Mommy's medicine. It's not much, but it's all my fortune." Ethan stared at the jar. Quarters, nickels, a few folded dollar bills. Maybe $20 in total. The little girl's words sliced through him. All my fortune. A man who controlled billions. Silenced by a child who measured fortune in coins for her mother's health. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. "Amara, you shouldn't have to carry that burden." "But I want to," she said firmly. "Because Mommy is my world. And if I don't try, who will?" Her determination shook him. He thought of his own childhood, growing up in a house where emotions were silenced, where money was always the goal, where nobody ever said you matter. Maybe that was why this child's courage pierced through every wall he had built. Finally, he spoke. "I can help. I will help." Marisol stiffened. "Mr. Caldwell, I can't accept that. You don't know us. You don't owe us anything." Ethan looked directly into her eyes. "Maybe I don't owe you. But I owe her. Because your daughter reminded me that there are things money can't measure. And I can't walk away from that." Marisol's lips trembled. She wanted to protest, but exhaustion weighed too heavy on her. For the first time, she allowed herself a flicker of hope. Amara clapped her hands, her face lighting up like sunshine after rain. "See, Mommy? I told you he was different." Ethan smiled faintly, though it was shaky. He had faced hostile takeovers and cutthroat negotiations, but nothing felt as terrifying, or as right, as this choice. Still, doubt gnawed at him. How far was he willing to go? To cover her treatments? To move them out of this place? To truly let them into his life? And then a thought struck him. What if his board, his investors, the press found out? What would they say if the millionaire CEO who guarded every penny suddenly poured his money into strangers he barely knew? Would they call him reckless? Weak? He looked again at Amara, at her bright eyes and her little jar of coins. And in that instant, the question no longer mattered. But before he could speak his decision out loud, a knock echoed at the door. Marisol's face paled. "Who could that be at this hour?" she whispered. The knock echoed again, louder this time. Amara clutched her teddy bear, her eyes darting to her mother. Marisol's body tensed, a shadow of worry passing across her tired face. Ethan stood quickly, instinctively placing himself between the door and the little girl. "Do you usually get visitors this late?" he asked. Marisol shook her head. "No. Never." Ethan hesitated only a moment before turning the knob. When the door swung open, a man in a dark jacket stood there, holding a clipboard. His expression was firm, professional, almost cold. "Ms. Marisol Alvarez?" he asked. Marisol stepped forward slowly. "Yes." The man handed her an envelope. "Notice of eviction. You're 3 months behind on rent. You have 10 days to vacate." Her hand trembled as she took the envelope. "But I've spoken to the landlord. He said he'd give me more time." The man shrugged. "Time costs money. And money always decides." Without another word, he turned and left, the sound of his footsteps fading down the hall. Amara's voice cracked. "Mommy, what's eviction?" Marisol knelt, pulling her daughter close. "It means we might have to leave our home." Ethan felt his chest tighten, anger simmering in a way he hadn't felt in years. Money once again, stripping away security, dignity, hope. He looked at the eviction notice, then back at Marisol. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. Tears glistened in her eyes. "Because this is my fight, not yours. You're a rich man, Mr. Caldwell. You live in a world where problems get solved with a signature. For us, every day is a storm we're just trying to survive." Her words cut deep, because they were true. For Ethan, fortune had always been power. For her, fortune had always been a dream too far away to touch. Amara tugged at his sleeve. "Mister, does this mean we'll have to sleep on the street?" Ethan crouched down, meeting her gaze. "No. Not while I'm here." The promise came out before he even thought it through. But once spoken, it felt unshakable. Marisol shook her head. "You can't just step in and—" "I can," Ethan interrupted firmly. "And I will." The determination in his tone silenced her. He had built empires with confidence, and now that same confidence was being placed into something entirely different, their lives. Still, the weight of what he was promising settled heavily on him. Helping them wasn't just about paying medical bills or covering rent. It meant crossing a line he had never crossed before, opening his world of money, fortune, and privilege to two people who had none of it. Was he ready for that? As he sat back down, the eviction notice still on the table, he felt something stir in him that had long been buried. He remembered being a boy, watching his mother cry over unpaid bills, his father telling him that money was the only thing that mattered. That memory had built the man he became, the millionaire who never let himself feel. And now, here was Amara, a 6-year-old girl, undoing decades of his coldness with nothing more than a letter and a jar of coins. Marisol finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why us? Out of all the people you could help, why us?" Ethan's reply was steady, though his heart pounded. "Because she asked me not to forget her. And I won't." Marisol's lips parted as if to argue, but just then, Amara climbed onto the couch beside Ethan, resting her small head against his arm. "You won't leave us, right?" she murmured sleepily. Ethan looked down at her, his chest tightening. For the first time, he realized, this wasn't just about helping. It was about belonging. But could a man who had built his entire life around fortune and power truly learn how to belong? Ethan sat there, the little girl asleep against his arm, her soft breathing a quiet rhythm in the otherwise tense room. Marisol watched him silently, uncertainty and hope battling in her eyes. For the first time, Ethan realized that money, fortune, and power could never replace this, the simple human connection that he had never allowed himself to feel. He gently lifted Amara, carrying her to her bed, tucking the blanket around her. Every movement was careful, almost reverent. Her trust, so complete, struck a chord deep within him. He had protected millions of dollars before, but this was different. "I'll take care of everything," he whispered, mostly to himself. No more waiting. No more fear. Marisol sat down beside him, her hands folded in her lap. "Are you serious?" she asked softly, almost afraid to believe it. Ethan nodded. "I've spent my life chasing fortune, but I've realized it's meaningless if you can't help someone in need. Your struggle, your courage, it changed me. And now, I want to do more than sign checks. I want to be part of your life. I want to make sure your world is safe, and that Amara can grow up without fear." Tears welled in Marisol's eyes, but she didn't speak. Words wouldn't do justice to what she felt: relief, gratitude, disbelief, and a new sense of hope that had seemed impossible just days before. The next morning, Ethan returned to his office, but the world felt different. The skyscraper, the contracts, the numbers, they were still there, but they no longer defined him. For the first time, he realized the true weight of fortune. It wasn't about accumulation, it was about responsibility. Within days, Marisol received the treatments she desperately needed. The eviction notice was withdrawn. Ethan had ensured that their apartment would remain theirs, that they would have stability, and that Amara's laughter could fill their home without the shadow of fear. Amara, bright-eyed and unstoppable, often ran into Ethan's office unannounced. She would sit on the leather couch, drawing pictures of her little castle and his skyscraper, linking them with colorful bridges of crayons. And every time she smiled at him, he felt richer than he ever had in his entire life. One afternoon, as they all sat together in the apartment, Amara handed Ethan another letter, her own little handwriting messy and bold, like a declaration. "Dear Mr. Caldwell," it began, "thank you for reading my letter. Thank you for helping Mommy. Thank you for caring. You are not just rich, you are kind. And kindness is the best fortune anyone can have." Ethan read the letter slowly, letting each word sink in. And as he looked at Amara, laughing and dancing around the room, he realized something profound. Real richness wasn't measured in millions of dollars or towering buildings. It was measured in love, in hope, and in the lives you touch. He had always thought his world was complete because of his fortune. Now, he knew it had been empty without human connection. And this little girl, with her small hands and unwavering courage, had shown him the most valuable lesson of all. That night, as Ethan watched Amara sleep once again, he whispered quietly, a smile forming despite the tears he could no longer hold back, "You reminded me what really matters, Amara. And for that, I am forever grateful." The fortune, the empire, the wealth, they remained. But the man who once only chased money had finally discovered what it meant to be truly rich. If you enjoyed this story, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, share this video and tell us in the comments, what part of this journey moved you the most? Here's another story waiting for you, and I'm sure it will change the way you see the world. Thank you for watching. See you soon.